definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we got one more call that I want to hit, but right before we go tonight, I want to get to Stan in Philadelphia. Hey, Stan, how's it going?
Hi, Stan.
Hey, Stan. Hey, Lloyd. Glad to be back. Dan.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. I don't have a good connection on my end, so I'll just put. Okay, so I wanted to. So my topic is that I think the world actually would be a better place if everyone was liberal. First, I want to just say that this isn't a criticism of the woman who called in previously, saying that she was an atheist, but she was still conservative and was having issues with that.
Mm-hmm.
It was very brave of her to have called in. So this isn't about her. However, during that call, Lloyd, you had said something along the lines of, if we were all conservative, wouldn't this be a more boring world or something like that? And I like to push back on that because I think something like that looks at like the left and the right, liberal and conservative, as if they're like colors on a rainbow. Like if we lose one of the colors, then the world. But I want to say that these are actually issues, and there are people on the other side of these issues, right? So, for instance, it is liberal, progressive stance that like LGBTQ people of all stripes are equal human beings that deserve our respect.
Yes.
And there should be no difference between them and anyone else, right? On the other side of that, that's not the case. There are people who disagree with that, right? If you are the type of person, not you specifically, but if a person, like enjoys maybe violence against, LGBTQ people, then yes, if everyone was liberal, the world would be more boring, But I happen to disagree with that. There are plenty of other issues, for instance, like immigrants, right? How we're immigrants in the United States right now, right? Like they're being rounded up, put in cages, families being separated, sometimes permanently, children and adults dying in these cages, right? And then a part of this country, I think that's okay, right? And on a not unrelated note, there's massive police against Black people, and then there's a certain part of this country, that same part, that says, no matter what the facts on the ground is of any sort of police incident, doesn't matter. I think whatever the police do against those Black and brown people is okay. So the liberal...
Just to maybe clarify my position, I wasn't in any way, shape or form suggesting that I want to live in a conservative universe. I happen to be a liberal myself, so I definitely swing more towards the left on a lot of issues, although probably if you're going to categorize me, it would probably be more centrist. I don't know. But look, all I'm saying is I'm not saying that I want to live in a world where there is this constant kind of seesawing between conservative and liberal. I'm saying that that's the world that we live in, whether we like it or not. What the reasons are for that, I have no idea. But I struggle to conceive of a universe where we all think the same way on everything, including politics. It seems to me self-evident that there will always be people who are conservative-minded, and there will always be people who are liberal-minded. And speaking from a purely subjective basis, I would prefer that the liberal side kind of wins the day, but that's not the world I see us living in either now or in the future, if that kind of clarifies things.
Okay, sure. And I understand. Sorry, Dan, you...
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, Stan, this is a topic that I've seen come up more and more lately, of this kind of criticism of centrism, this or a centrist principle, which is like, oh, we should value all ideas equally. And I don't identify as a centrist myself. I would probably call myself a progressive, because I think that's total BS as well. Obviously, like I think people who are critical of our LGBT friends and stuff, and who actively try to make their lives worse, we shouldn't allow that in our society. That's a personal opinion that I have, and so and we can talk about these kinds of issues all day. And I think I like to make a point of that on this show. I think I'm pretty clear about where I stand on that kind of stuff. stuff because I want the people who are listening to know what I think so that they can understand where my biases are at and where I'm coming from. With calls like that, it is kind of tricky because as part of the ACA, representing a nonprofit, we can't talk about like who we think we should vote for and stuff like that. And so like I'm always like very on. I'm on stepping on glass. It feels like when having those conversations, I like to just make it more policy focused.
And also, if you're going to shoot someone down in flames for expressing a political opinion, all you're going to do is make them feel persecuted.
Yes.
And then they're going to think, well, hang on, if that's the reaction I'm getting, maybe I'm onto something here, So there's something to be said for just having a calm conversation when the two political spheres collide. In
another world, if I wasn't on this show, I would have asked a question maybe along the lines of, why do you think that Donald Trump is someone worth voting for or something? Like that's not something I can really explore too much just because of the nature of how this program works. But like that's definitely something I would have in a personal conversation because I would want to know what reasons she has. I'm probably going to disagree with those reasons. I might even think a lot of those reasons are bad. There may be something I've never heard before. It's like, oh, well, that's something I need to think about or retain. But I'm more on the leaning of if somebody is going to tell me that they have those beliefs that I don't understand, my first instinct is to know more. Like that's what I want, and I would rather somebody be honest with me and tell me that they have a more conservative leaning or they voted for this person, so I can better understand that than somebody feeling like they have to put up a face because they don't feel comfortable in the environment they're at and expressing themselves. Because we've all been there. We've all been like, I don't, I don't feel comfortable in this environment, stuff like that. So, being your true self.
So, I much what you said, Dan, and to Lloyd, I'm aware, that's not the world that we live in. But like, I guess the point that push against that centrist sentiment, of like, the left and the right have to come together and, like meet in the middle and whatever. And that kind of thinking often leaves people behind, right? Like people are left behind where we ignore what these issues are just for some weird sense of cohesion where these things actually matter. Like there are lives in the balance,
I also worry though that if we treat the other side as though they just don't exist or ought not to exist, do you not think there's also a danger that they feel more enraged because they feel completely disenfranchised, and then that might drive them to even more extreme positions that leads to more suffering? So that's why I'm kind of interested in, as much as possible, trying to understand and help people with kind of meaningful dialogue and discourse, rather than just saying, well, you guys, the universe would be better off without you guys,
Well, hold on. Okay, so I just want to make sure this is like a theoretical discussion that the world would be better. Again, I agree with you that that's not the world we live in. And also, I street epistemology. I think the idea of being able to talk to people on a non-judgmental level and try to understand their ideas is the perfect thing to do. And that another caller, showed us that by being able to change that person's mind on Catholicism, at least a little bit. That's not possible if you come at them in a manner. So I'm with you on that 100%, right? Yeah. But I don't want us to forget that, what I'm fighting for as a liberal, progressive-minded person is that there are actual lives, in the balance, right?
Yeah.
And that if you don't fight for them with that sort of urgency, right, then people will be left behind, right?
I'll do it, definitely.
And all, I think, and also to a point, just saying that, in our late stage capitalism society, that you can't also separate the social from the fiscal. People in our country anyway, we spend so much on our military, right? But that comes at a cost, right? Just one fighter jet for schools, right? And we're having a big debate in this country about should healthcare be for all, right?
Well, you don't need to preach to me about that because I come from Britain and we're very proud of our NHS. So.
There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is that like these are important issues, right? And you can't separate the two. So like I see that people do that sometimes. They say like, you know, like, well, I'm not socially conservative. I'm fiscally conservative. Still hurts people on the other side as well. So I just wanted to just put that out there that like that there's this idea of this weird sense of that we're wrong to get things done, right? Like that's the only way. But I'm saying that like even to conservatives on the other side, like if you believe in it, so you need to fight for it as well as hard as you can, right? That doesn't mean we have to treat each other as enemies. I'm not saying that whatsoever, right? I'm not saying we have to denigrate each other, right? But like matter, and we shouldn't lose sight of that.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring this up, Stan, because I think it is an important thing to point out. And it's a good conversation to have on these things. I personally, myself, this year, I've read a lot on Reddit on r/late stage capitalism and stuff. And I think that it's a great place to, you know, get some perspectives on that and stuff. I've read a lot more about like anarchism and stuff this year. Like, I think, well, there's another discussion to be had about like millennials in general kind of leaning more towards a lot of these ideas that previous generations maybe were not as warm to because of our economic situation, and tons like that. I mean, again, that's a discussion for another show that isn't wrapping up in this moment. But yeah, like I'm fully with you on a personal level here, Stan. Like I agree, we need to be making sure that we aren't, you know, like we have to stand up for what we believe in, and not concede so much to where we're actually helping out something that we don't want to help out, right? Like we don't want to, I don't want any, like, you know, we brought up the LGBT example. I don't want any of my LGBT friends to be harmed because of, you know, stuff like that. So hey, thanks for calling into the show, and thanks for talking about it with us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I ended it before he could say his goodbyes because we do have to wrap things up here.